We've looked at a lot of ancient megalithic sites and megalithic stonework like Baalbek and the pyramids and ancient temples and things along that line. And some of that stonework is just so huge you can't believe it. And how they've just cut it out and been able to transport it all is just amazing. But some other sites too. I mean, clearly, you look back and we had the Iron Age. It goes back to the Bronze Age when we didn't have as good of metals, but we're still doing more incredible things than the Stone Age, where right there peels out. The Bronze Age made the Stone Age better because we did better work with stone, and then Iron Age made everything even better than that, and so on. But there is Stone Age, which is bronze-ish and beyond that back into time, and it goes past the last ice age. And they found cavemen stuff and everything that goes back to 60,000 years and so on, so it easily envelopes back through that. But there are sites like you see here in this picture where it's actually been cut out of bedrock, and a site is made. Now, some of these are somewhat natural, and you could say some of them have been natural and then changed or developed on. Other times, it's definitely not. And so let's look at these, because, I mean, you hear all these old ancient stories about sites like this, and you hear stories about these ancient Aryan people and stuff, and unicorns and fanciful things and trips to foreign lands and things these people did in olden times, and what would be pre-Roman cultures across Europe. So here's a site that has these megalithic stones on it. It's definitely not just straight true Roman. The size of these megalithic blocks, are Baalbekish, we will say. And stonework like this, where you can tell where something has been worked, and you can tell it's been cleaved. And, I know you can get popped off natural stuff, but then you have things that are like this, that is 40 to 60 foot, tall, or 20 meters tall in places, that has been cut right through the bedrock and made a path through. And it really makes you wonder at what point in prehistory man developed the ability, the knowledge, the want to no longer go around that hill, but had the technology, know-how, and ability to go through that hill. And so let's look at some of these. And there's a lot of ancient caves that have been rebuilt, and so it makes you wonder, how old is all this? Who built it? There are places it's thousands of kilometers of rock, cut in grooves, cut in sets, and then of course there's ancient areas that are definitely civilization. And you can see things like in this pic here, where this is a very primitive structure that has been built into, and I don't know if it had a cave in olden times and then people came in later and fixed it up. I mean, that's truly what they want you to believe, is that they just found a cave and then they fixed it up. But they've dug into here a whole walkway going up, all these windows and things. You can tell this structure here was made later when people came here. And so they're saying, well, when the people came here, they fixed it up more. And it makes you wonder how much they had to fix it up. Because there's some of these sites that you can find that it's got a building on top of it, and right below it are these ancient grottos. They're all over through here. Ancient grottos like this, which sometimes at glance, you don't think that this is anything at all, but in this exact site here is one of the places they found people's existence for over 20,000 years, and a little bit of cave art. So this is probably utilized more ancient time, and then not after that than this was. And then this later got reoccupied with these people, which probably are Roman-esque and Trojan-y people, and you go back through, and Scythians and all those guys are in the area. and came in and maybe did some work or fixed up windows or did something during their occupation of the area, apparently having a tower, so a protected or fortified area. So soldiers come in there and they did this on the side, and stuff perhaps, and a lot of things servicemen can do during their off time of not killing people. But there's incredible sites all over, from span to span across Europe, of these ancient gaps that have been cut through, and some of them are quite unique. And when you look at things like this, you have to realize that these are just an old cave. Just an old cave. Well, at what point did they shape this thing and put these steps that run right up into it and cleave the top to where it looks flat and do it up under here too? I mean, is this a recent thing, or is this what we would talk about? Not, the Lithic age. It's not the Neolithic age. It'd be, because that's the newer stonework. It's the Lithic age. It's where we lose it. And during this time, there would have been Göbekli Tepe happening and things like that. And this is the type of thing that people were living in. And sure, so we're cave dwellers, but it's kind of an advanced-y kind of cave weird thing. And places like this that you see that are so eroded and show you evidences of rooms that had windows in them that are now eroded away to where the ceiling fell in, or did they have a skylight? Did they get the cool penthouse up here? How does this all work, and how eroded is it? You look at sites like this, and as eroded away as it is, that has to have been there for a long, long time. Are these doorways just the primitive doorways, and it never was manipulated later? But the evidence they found was from somebody way after this was built that came in and occupied that place during oppression or going from land to land to have a place to stay and settle. They find their remnants and then tag it on those people, rather than looking at it more in depth and going, well, there's something going on before those people were here, apparently, ... let's look into this. But they always want to seem to tag it. And a lot of times people have gone now hundreds of times into sites like this where they had already had a dig and tagged it, and they dig down and find something, a total different layer, and it's much older and still has remains in it, and have redated a lot of sites. I've seen sites go from the year 1300 to the year 3000 BC in a dig. Like 1380 to 3000 BC. In fact, there's one site, I'm going to show you these in a second, but there's one site that they have that actually changed to go from all the way from a place that was occupied from in the medieval ages, they said, because they went down into it and farther and found some cave art, and then dug the dirt that had been packed down into it and found skulls, and that's one of the ones that flipped back to 60,000 years. So history changes as people learn more, get more advanced, find more advanced techniques, and what's really helping us nowadays is DNA. What you can see here in this site is these two yellow ones here are old amphitheaters that are both cut into rock. They're not made in any way. They're cut into existing rock, like you'd find something that looked kind of like an amphitheater and then manipulate it. Okay? Now, all the blue sites have megalithic cave sites that have all been changed and warped and look like they are definitely lithic people. And then the red sites here all have commonality in their structure that are different than the others, and they're making something that looks like temples and different things built into those structures. And they all have a commonality from the Black Sea. But then you find way out here on the Iberian Peninsula, on this side over here, you can actually find another one. Let me zoom in on that. So you see that one on the far left, right there. Way out on the end of Spain. So all these different sites have correlating data that go to each other that reach from the same time period that they are believing in. And each one of these sites, too, is a manipulated site of that time period. And I'm telling you, before that, there were people in there that turned something that may have been a regular old cave into what these dot people ran into. And beautified, bettered the cave in some way. So these were the people that were probably just starting to do stonework. It's possible that doing this type of Neolithic cave fixing is what started making people fix up blocks to fix and make up walls and structures that led to somebody just doing it out in the open, that led to all the structures that we do see today, if you follow what I'm saying. So it's quite interesting to try to dig back through these sites, and I wish they gave them a little bit more respect, because you see things like this, and it's just totally unique. When you stand in it, it looks like you're looking through the eyes of a skull. It's not facing anything nice, except for a valley that they're worried people coming up into, maybe. But you can see sites like this, and what's odd is you can see that here in Turkey, they have these phallic doorways, where they have the crown crest top to where it's kind of phallic shaped, that they call them and stuff. And then they found these old caves, right, like this, that are up in Spain, that have the same set in them, right? So is this fixed up that had a thing like that going on? Well, there's more of these and more examples everywhere. The Spanish people went all through over, and they even went off into Ethiopia and started their slave trade thing off there in Islam. There's your little cross symbols. And there's those same doorways. So for a long, long time, they were doing these doorways. And I remember when I was a kid, they said these were all Persian, because Persian people had the little top with a point on it and things like that. And literally found out later, no, the Persians had some from the influence of the people that ended up invading through there and back. And a blend of that and their style is what gave them their unique style. Not this, and everybody's unique style is blended for something. But this makes you really start thinking, about those Phoenician people. And how the Phoenician people had seemed to go, and there's another one of those doorways built into a cave. Or you find depictions like this, where it's got allows the sun to come through, made on purpose through it. And you can tell that there's some nice stonework around this that had been there. And I know this isn't real hard stone like granite, it's more like limestone. But how many thousands of years of erosion would you have to have on them to where they would go to crap like that? And how many of these places that we're looking at now have so much erosion on them that we really don't give them the respect that they could get if you looked at it a little bit better? You follow me? So this is off of megaliths.org, as you can see listed there and in the bottom, and I've got a link for it in the bottom. But she's made these connections. She does her own videos and has made these connections too. And in seeing it, it's really amazing how many of these road work things that are cut through. You've seen my ones that I do on ruts around the world, and I did one recently about some that are in Texas here and some other places. And it just makes you wonder at what point people again decided to not go around this rock, but to go through it. And then how many times you have to drive a cart over it to develop the ruts that we're talking about, and these ancient causeway walks that you can clearly tell that's cut out smooth through there. No one could really convince any geologist that that was done by the wind going around the corner, that that's actually been worked on. Sure, it's softer stone. That's been worked. How long ago did that get worked? And all these places that are built up that have these cut-through walkways and living quarter areas, and things that a lot of people just mark off as tombs. They just say, oh, well, that's a tomb. Oh, that's a tomb. It's got a hole in it. That's a tomb. Well, can't people get in there and live? Or could it be a shelter to hide something in, and you roll a rock in front of it that's no longer there? Oh, there's the rock right over there. Is it possible that some of these ancient roads are a little bit more ancient than we thought, There's a weird thing too, is I found about 15 of these that have this weird effect where there's puddle, 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 and or ridges right beside that, and puddle, 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 puddle. And even though there's cart tracks going through there, there's no real explanation for that puddle, 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 puddle. You can't get me to believe that the horses were so much in unison in step that were going down through there, or the people too, that somehow it ended up doing that. It only seems to be coming through or in or out of these digs that go through. And you could tell that, like in this picture here, it's kind of important to thought. If you were up on the top of this ground here, you could make it flat like this, and you could just go right on through it and keep going. Well, on the other side of this, about 15 yards or so, there's a little cliff, and it drops off, and it gets about the depth that this is. So they decided to cut in an egress, and then much later, that little castle thing goes on there, and they fortify it. But I don't think this has anything to do with this. I think they built this because this was here, and the ancient pathway that used to look like this went up through it. And how old are some of these, and why were they done? And you can't get me to believe that nobody worked these. And it really, really doesn't look like this was all done by the Romans. I mean, they did some incredible work, and they ran miles and miles around, but what did they do? Like, share, and subscribe, guys. I've got another one coming out with a few sets of these, and I've got my own little set of pictures, and we're going to go through them. Appreciate y'all.